I've been spiraling about this and I needed to felt and learn a couple new skills like unraveling sweaters and felt some stuff successfully in order to feel better about myself. Hi, hey team, welcome back to the Night Sky Knitting channel. My name is Rachel, I am your host, and today I'm going to try to vlog for the first time because I have been looking for, I think, a fun type of new video format. Not that I think I will be doing this on a regular basis at all, but to switch things up a little bit, and because it's been so long since I filmed a podcast that I'm intimidated to jump right back on in with the mountain of projects I have to show you guys. And also because I have a long weekend here where I live in Ottawa, because today is November 11th, which is Remembrance Day in Canada, in honor of veterans, all who've lost their lives in Canadian wars, and a remembrance of like why war is bad, basically. I get the day off from work. And I have a lot of crafty nesting plans for this long weekend to kind of hunker down for winter, which is knocking at our doors here where I live, and get a lot of things that are on my mind done, try a bunch of different crafts, and get that satisfaction from finishing projects that are kind of knocking at the back windows of my brain. So those include and are not limited to getting a significant amount of my crocheted granny square afghan finally done. We need it, it's winter. Felting some dryer balls using some unloved early sweaters of mine, knitting my tiny little stuffed frog a sweater, getting some test and gift knitting done. Oh, and a sweater to unravel and reclaim the yarn. That's a pretty exciting one, and I completely forgot to mention it. As I'm listing these things, they don't sound entertaining at all, but I'm hoping that this weekend will be a fun thing to vlog because I will be doing a whole bunch of different crafts and trying some new things for the very first time for myself during what I think is going to be a really low-key weekend for me, very restorative, the way that I need, and I think it might be fun to bring you along. So here I am. It is 10:45 in the morning on Friday. I have washed my face, made some coffee. I have a leftover muffin from yesterday, and I'm ready to start my day. Morning people do not come for me. I'm called Night Sky Knitting for a reason. And while I have a lot of exciting things, or things that I'm at least excited to craft this weekend, I'm going to start off with some knitting on the Lost Tank test knit for Friday Knits, which I signed up for on a whim, and just do some ribbing back and forth, watch some of the new podcasts that have recently been released, and like ease into thinking and ease into my day. So I'll bring you guys along. So this is my point of view, and this is where you guys will be sitting. Hey everyone, it's now a little bit past noon and I am on the floor folding all the laundry, all the loads of laundry I did last night when I was feeling a lot braver and a lot stronger. But I wanted to pop in and show you the sweater I plan to unravel soon, which is an old one from my dad that he gave to me to reclaim the yarn if I so desire, so that I can use this to make a series of hats, because this sweater has not been worn in at least 9 years. I think it's probably like 15 or 20 years old to begin with, and it is 100% cashmere. And while this makes a beautiful sweater and is a lovely color, I think it would be better suited as a series of hats, because the more I knit, the more I'm like, listen, sometimes I want a really nice luxe next to skin soft overall garment, but really what I want are super soft things against my neck and my forehead, and I can just like wear a t-shirt under my kind of scratchy sweater. So I'm going to use this ideally to make hats for me and my brother out of the sweater from our dad. Maybe also a hat for my boyfriend, we're gonna see, and then also, if there's still enough yarn, maybe like a neck warmer for me. Oh my goodness, my hair. That's okay. Like some type of neck warmer or scarf so that I have something really, really soft and warm against my most sensitive areas for the upcoming winter. I would say that this yarn is probably about a fingering weight, maybe a sport, and the actual garment is knit in some type of like fisherman's rib or brioche, so I'm hoping that means I get a lot of yarn out of it. So stay tuned for how that goes. Hey team, welcome back. It's now almost 1 p.m. and I'm about to leave to go run some errands. I think it'll feel a lot better to kind of sit and veg for the rest of the weekend and really just sit in my pajamas and crochet and felt and knit and mend, knowing that all the little errands I have to get done are done. So laundry is folded, hair has been brushed. Might have been a bad idea, it's kind of poofy now. Bed has been made, ball winder has been returned to its proper position on my desk. I was going to wear a knit fit today and show you the one like outfit I probably have that isn't pajamas for this whole weekend, but it's actually way too warm to wear any of my sweaters with the skirt that I wanted to wear for one of the last times it's warm enough to wear a skirt for the rest of the year. So instead I'm in an old school sweatshirt, matches my poppy. I'm in a really good mood. I know that the light is very gray. It's a very cloudy November day. It's gonna rain all night apparently, and I know I've been kind of subdued because it was the morning, but I'm really excited to be taking my backpack in to be prepared, picking up something I ordered a few weeks ago, and to be able to come home, just kind of focus on all the fun things I get to do for the rest of the day. Is there really anything better than like getting dressed to go out and then coming back home and then putting on your pajamas? No, nothing is better. And then this afternoon, I think I maybe want to try my hand at unraveling that sweater while I have the energy to do so, and a little bit of light. How's this? Is this terrible quality but make it cozy? Maybe. We're gonna try. So we're back at my desk because this is where my ball winder is, and it's just so much easier to film here. I did look for a little tripod at the mall for my camera to see if I can, when I say camera, I do mean phone, to see if that would make it easier to film these kinds of on-the-go style videos, or if that could expand my filming options, and I didn't really see one, and then I got overwhelmed by being at the mall, and I came home. So I then ate lunch, and now my tummy is full and I'm very sleepy. It is it's just past 4:30, and the sun is setting, and it's just started to rain. It's quite gross outside, and so the lamp is on, the lighting is hazy, and this would be a great cozy night in if I didn't have plans to go to a house party at my friend's house, and I would consider bailing, except we are supposed to go for drinks on Wednesday, and I did not go to that because I had a big work thing in the next day, and it just was not a responsible thing to do. So I really have to show my face now, and the next few hours are going to be devoted to recharging my social battery alone and rallying to go out in the grossest weather ever, and also unraveling the sweater from my dad. The video that I'm using as a guide is by Anna Passi Trevino. I will do my best to remember to link it down below. She's another knitting YouTuber who has a whole video taking you step by step through how to reclaim yarn from commercial sweaters or thrifted sweaters, what to look for, what are things you can do, how to prep, etc. And I'm very much relying on her video and the accompanying blog post as a guide for this process. You know, I'm going to turn the overhead light back on, even though it's ugly, so that we can have a more informed conversation. I also closed that door. So, okay, no, this is fine. So, you have to check the seams before looking to, this is what I've learned, to reclaim a sweater, because it matters whether or not it's like knitted together or if they are large pieces of fabric that have been cut and serged together. So that's the difference. I posted on Instagram asking if anybody could tell, because it's such a dark color and such a dark fabric, and I have no experience with this. And Anna herself actually responded saying, oh, I think you can rip that one. So fingers crossed, I'm gonna do my best. Maybe I ruined this cashmere sweater on this vlog tonight, but only one way to find out. So, all right, a harrowing few minutes later, where I thought that I was wrong and this was not the right kind of sweater to unravel, because I had a bunch of tiny strings like this, but it actually turns out that I cut a little bit too much, and so I lost a few meters of yarn, but I was told to expect this and this is normal. And look, here is the sleeve panel. This is going to take me a few hours, so I will continue in proper daylight so everyone can see better, you know, sometime this weekend. But here is the sleeve panel, which I do think, like, you know, this is a big sleeve. I'm hoping I'll get a good amount of yarn out of it. And then here on this one end, the yarn. I can just, woohoo! So I'm going to put this in my ball winder and do this properly starting now. But whew, what a relief. We're getting somewhere, folks. So it is now 3:30 on Saturday, November 12th, and I have now connected all of the squares to the blanket, and now I am gonna go and connect, or I'm in the process of connecting all the vertical columns, because I've already done the horizontal ones. Those are the seams that you can see there. And this has been a whip that's been languishing since February of 2021. But I really would like to get this done. I think it would really suit our living room and the colors and the vibe we have. And I would just like to finish it. I would really like us to have a blanket that I made. And my roommates are very on board. They love the colors, as you can tell by our general vibe. I'm having a very slow and sleepy day, but that's good. That's fine. I did change my sweatshirt just to mark the passage of time. Normally I would still be in the same sweatshirt because it was clean from yesterday. And yeah, I had a really good night last night with my friends, and now I'm really excited to spend the rest of the weekend cuddled up with my yarny things and my crafts. I did last night manage to completely unravel one sleeve of the sweater from my dad, and I got just shy of 80 grams of yarn from it, and it does definitely seem to be fingering weight, maybe a bit of like a heavy fingering going into sport weight. We'll see. I have absolutely no idea what kind of meterage I have because I don't have a nitty naughty, and I'm hoping to make some more progress unraveling it later today. I did definitely learn a lot from that first sleeve, and it was very nerve-wracking, especially doing it after the sun went down when it was quite stormy out, and so the lighting was not good. And so it is in 4 different little cakes because I did accidentally cut the yarn a few times trying to figure out which way I should be unraveling the panel. But now I know that it's like a top-down sweater. The panel's in it from the top down, so I know where to cut. I think I will not lose nearly as much yarn as I did on that sleeve. It was quite exhilarating. Ripping apart this beautiful, beautiful cashmere sweater and then hoping I wasn't going to ruin it, but I didn't ruin it, not yet. And it feels like I've unlocked a new skill, you know, new ability achieved. I weighed this main color for the crochet blanket to see how much I had after joining all of the squares using a single crochet join through the back loop for the horizontal rows. Here you can see the back side of it. The seam doesn't look great, but I do like it on the front. I like this edge, and that's not a pretty one. I like the extra couple millimeters it gives, but I know that I had 74 grams of this out of 100 from starting those joins, from doing those joins, and I think that means I'm not worried about running out currently. I have to do 5 more in order to finish joining, and then I'm just gonna do a scallop edge border and see how far that gets me. But yeah, having this on my lap is really nice for this cozy gray November afternoon, and it feels good. It feels really good to get stuff done. So I'm watching currently Allie of Black Spruce Fiber Arts, her latest upload. She's back after the summer, and I really enjoyed watching her knit her wedding dress in her last video, and I'm excited to see what she's up to now. So check in with you guys again soon. Which then kind of ruined a little bit of the yarn, enough where I don't feel too bad about it, and sometimes that's just the name of the game, but I can't see what I'm doing anymore and I'm tired of crochet. So I'm moving on to another little crafty endeavor for today, which is turning this sweater and one other into felted dryer balls as something, as a way to eliminate plastic waste in my house and also give as gifts, because apparently that's a thing that people give as gifts. And once my mom received them from my aunt, and we use them all the time, and they're really, really great. So you use them instead of those dryer sheets in order to, I think, soften your clothes and make them dry faster, but you just let them live in the dryer. You don't have to take them in and out, and there you go. Clothes dry faster, no static, maybe softer. Great. Oh, and then if you do it with wool, it's completely natural. So this is something that you can do with, I think, plain roving, like raw fleece, but you can also do it, I'm told, with old sweaters. And I put this one on to demonstrate to you, because you guys have never seen this before. It's an old crochet sweater. It's done with, I think, a cross between a half double crochet and a slip stitch kind of thing. But this is one of the first garments that I made, and I've only worn it 3 times because I actually don't love crochet fabric a ton for wearables, and that's why I knit. And also this just has so many mistakes. You can see here that my panels for the front and the back were not even. And so I kind of at the end like added some half double and double crochets to even them out, but it looks really, really obvious. And here's like a little hole. There's just a lot of stuff like that on this. The neckline's a little strange. I don't always love this unintentional funnel. It doesn't sit nicely on my body. It always kind of wants to ride up, and then it's kind of taller in the front than in the back. And overall, I love this color, but I never wear this, and it's pretty bulky. This was done, I think, with a 6mm hook, but honestly, I can't remember. But it's with a worsted or an Aran weight yarn. You can kind of see here an end I didn't weave in how thick that is. And that means it's taking up a lot of space in my little dresser where I keep my knitwear, where space is at a premium. So I think it's time to have this sweater be reborn along with one other. Along with this one, which is my first ever sweater. It's the Aosta by the Knit Pro Girl. This thing was meant to be a small, or actually no, this was originally an extra small. To give you, like, this has this currently is a 44-inch bust across. This is how much this grew. I didn't understand gauge. There were so many problems with this that it's just been living under a bed in my mom's house while I figured out what to do with it, and like only associated stress with this. But these two are going to be reborn into wool dryer balls. I have read a couple tutorials online. I will be following them. I'll link them down below because this is more of a crafty vlog than a tutorial, and I've never done these things before, so I'm not a great resource, but those tutorials will be. The idea is basically you cut it back into panels, cut off the cuffs and the collar, and then you cut in each panel. I'm going to use like a sleeveless demonstration. You cut it in like a 1/2 inch or maybe 1.5 centimeters spiral. So all of it is still connected, but it's like a long ribbon. And then you wrap that ribbon around a balled up piece of cuff until you have about a 3-inch ball. And then you tie that in a like old tight or pantyhose or things like that. And then you wash them on hot and put them in the dryer, and they should felt. So I will be trying that this evening, and we'll see how it goes. But maybe I'll change into the Aosta so you can see how bad that looks too. Ooh, okay. So it's huge on me, which one day I will knit myself a sweater that's really big with a lot of positive ease, but I don't think that this is that sweater. It looks a little bit better on camera than it does in real life. But if any returning viewer to this channel will know, I don't like really long sleeves, and this just isn't it. I'm never gonna wear this. So a dryer ball it shall be. Okay, so here is my first, hopefully soon to be dryer ball. It looks so much crinklier and wigglier than the sample, but I'm hoping that's just because this is a much bulkier weight of yarn than the store-bought sweater that the guide was using, and so fingers crossed this will still work out. But it's roughly ball sized, and I feel like this will felt down nicely. So, hi, it's been about 2 hours. It's now like 8:30, and I have made 8 of those dryer balls and tied them in an old pair of tights as is specified in the tutorials that I've been following. So I also sewed in the ends, like the last bit of that little swirl that I made, into a little ball because the tutorial I'm following says that really helped with the longevity and keeping them secure. Sorry, there's a lot of noise because my roommate has some friends over for dinner and I'm trying to give them space, but sound carries in our apartment. But because this is a bulky weight fabric and the stitches on this
formerly crocheted sweater and this knit sweater are kind of big. I'm very nervous about whether or not these are gonna really felt nicely and really like absolutely bind themselves to each other and felt down evenly, or whether or not they're all going to come undone as just felted strips of fabric, and I can just sew them back down again if that is the case. I think I used some old alpaca yarn so that that'll also felt nicely. But I'm thinking that along with running this through a hot water, high heat washer dryer cycle to felt them, I throw in the front and back panels that I still have left from this crochet sweater and all of this in the washer too, because a lot of the tutorials I'm seeing they start with a sweater that's already been felted a little bit and then you felt it further. So I'm gonna see if that makes a better one, because if I'm giving these as gifts, I want them to last. It's one thing if a dryer ball comes apart after a few uses, after a few runs in my house, because then I can fix it, but it's not a good gift if they're not gonna really work well. So we are going to do some experimenting. Hi, next on the agenda is, it is November and Frog needs a sweater, you see. Because he is but a wee amphibian, he has no fur, he has no protection against the elements, and he sits in a window, so it gets a little drafty. So I have a few grams of this leftover Amano Chosky, which is a nylon-free sock yarn. It's superwash merino, linen, and cotton that I've used to make all manner of socks, but I'm getting kind of tired of these socks and I don't really have enough to to make a lot of things. And so I think I'm going to use it to make Frog a wee sweater, because I think that would be cute. It would use up a decent amount of these scraps, and it would maybe get me some gratification and relief from finishing a sweater and using up some scraps. And one of my roommates asked that his sweater be blue because he sits next to a couple blue paintings and she thought it would tie in that little corner quite nicely. So his neck circumference is a little over 4 inches, and then as you can see, it doesn't really get much bigger. So I'm going to be using that as a rough guide, however, using different stitch counts and then not a really deep yoke, because his arm is right here, to attempt to knit Frog a little sweater, because I think that would be cute and fun. So onwards we march. Hi everyone, so it's been about 20 hours since the last time I filmed a little check-in with you guys, and I've been busy. So it's currently about 5:20 on Sunday, November 13th. And last night I stayed up until almost 3 in the morning knitting Frog his sweater, and then also absolutely obsessed with felting. So I'm really glad I spent some time yesterday with that sweater on so you could see how absolutely this thing has shrunk. This is so stiff. I was thinking, like, if I balled this thing up, I could like do some damage against an attacker. But this is that Aosta sweater that I knit and was damp yesterday. And okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. I am, because I've been busy and things have happened. But first and foremost, I knit Frog a sweater. I measured his neck, the circumference of his neck, and then I cast on, based on a teeny sweater pattern, different gauge, different circumference, and then I just kept trying it on him to make it fit, and it does. I think he looks so cute. I think he looks so cozy. It used up some scrap yarn. I still have quite a bit of it left. What can you do? I keep thinking I could knit a bunch of these little sweaters and then put them on hangers and have them be gifts as like a set of Christmas ornaments. So feel free to steal that idea if you'd like. I don't think I'm gonna do it just because this was really fast and I'm really happy I cast it on, because first of all, he looks adorable. Second of all, it was really satisfying and I kind of needed a win. But this is not the kind of thing that appeals to me on a regular basis. And even though this only took me, a few hours in the evening, I just don't really feel compelled to knit more, unless of course something happens to this one and Frog needs another. He will eventually get a little hat and a little scarf, maybe booties, I don't know, but I'm very pleased with this. So that is thing number, I don't know, 3 that I've crossed off this list of things that I wanted to not necessarily get done, but either initiate the process of or make progress on this little crafty weekend. I knit his sweater last night. So he's going to be sitting slightly off frame, just like my roommates sometimes are as I film in the living room. And start talking about the next thing. I have also now unraveled maybe 3/4 of that sweater from my dad. You can see it has that crinkle unraveled texture, and it occurred to me, I read somewhere, and I don't remember where, that if a sweater has been dry cleaned with a certain chemical, then the crinkle is never going to come out of the yarn. Don't remember the chemical, don't even remember if that's true. That's just something that occurred to me as I was on like hour 4 spread across this weekend of unraveling the sweater, as I looked at the tag for this and it says dry clean only, and I know for a fact that my mom would have had this cleaned at least once. So this crinkle might never come out. I'm not bothered by this in the slightest because first of all, like it already has, like there's some texture, but honestly it's pretty relaxed. And also it's such a dark yarn that there's not going to be a lot of stitch definition, and this is going to be hats and winter accessories. It doesn't matter. It makes no material difference in the wear of it or the experience I will have knitting with it, and that'll be that. This is the biggest of the cakes I've been able to get from that because there kept being breaks in the yarn, usually because I was doing this in poor light and then would cut something that I shouldn't have cut because I couldn't see what I was doing, and then kind of cut the actual part of the knit panel and then therefore created a break in the yarn as opposed to along the seam. Most of the time that's me, but also in areas like here where there was no way of getting the collar off without having that happen. So I have a bunch of, this is one of the smaller ones. This is my biggest one. Most of them are kind of in between these two sizes. And then I have a whole bunch of little balls of like maybe like 7 feet of yarn at a time from areas like near the seams or whatever where there was just a whole bunch of tiny little squigglies. I'm thinking if any of my friends embroider, I will give maybe some of that yarn in case it's useful to them. I think I'm going to use some of it to embroider some things, but I will get there. To show you about the thickness that we're working with, can you kind of see? And you can see it's a 2-ply. But I would describe this as a 4-ply / fingering weight yarn. It's on the lighter side, but when I hold this next to my Holst Coast or my Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair, it's not that much thinner, or it's quite comparable to the Holst Coast. So far, and having not done the front panel yet because I find this to be a much more enjoyable experience when I break it up into chunks, like I did the sleeves separately, I did the back separately, and that's been a good pace for me. I'm thinking, okay, so currently I have about 200 grams of this yarn in a bunch of little cakes. I'm thinking I might hold it double to make hats because I checked in with my brother to ask what kind of hats he likes, and he says I don't really like hats. I spend way too much time on my hair to risk it with a hat. So I'm gonna have to think of something else to knit with him because I do want to make sure that my brother gets something with this yarn because I think that would be very meaningful to him. My brother is very sentimental, and that's the kind of thing he would appreciate, that I knit him something, you know, just for him using the sweater yarn from our father. I think that would be nice. So I'm thinking maybe I'll make him like fingerless mitts because he also bikes a lot, and my boyfriend, who's also a big cyclist, really gets a lot of wear out of his fingerless mitts. He brings it up a lot as that being a good gift. So that might be something else that I do, but I still have another 1/4 of this sweater left to unravel, and I'm already at like almost 200 grams of yarn. I feel comfortable holding it double to make the 2 hats, maybe some mitts for my brother, and then whatever else. I'm thinking maybe some type of scarf for myself because I want this cashmere to be as close to skin as possible. None of this bulky layering sweater business. But this is going pretty well in my opinion. I'm pleased with it. And this was really bugging me getting it done because that's just kind of how my brain works when I'm like, oh, that's the thing I want to do, but starting it's really annoying, and I've never unraveled a sweater before, and oh, I'm scared, so I'm going to put it off. But also, I have limited storage space for big bulky knits like that sweater was. In my apartment, I have 2 closets that are both kind of small closet sized, but that's mostly for hanging things, and I have a very small dresser, and I should and could get a bigger dresser. I just I don't want to do that until my living situation's more permanent. And also I'm cheap. So that sweater, because I knew I was going to unravel it and I don't have space for it anywhere, would sit on my desk until I needed to use my desk, and then I would move it to my bed, and then it would sit on my bed, and then I would move it back to the desk, and it was just always out, so it took up a lot of space, and it was just always a reminder of that thing that I hadn't done yet. So I'm very, very happy to A, have learned a lot about unraveling sweaters, and B, gotten that out of my house into a material that I'm very excited to work with. And I'm currently resisting casting on one of those projects with this yarn because I have currently way too much going on. But those are my reflections on that so far, and I would like to again recommend Anna Passi Trevino's tutorial on this. It has been quite useful to me, and she anticipates a lot of questions or concerns that I had when it came up, and I'm really grateful. So that's that. The next thing, and this is pretty much the reason why I was up. Well, the reason why I was up until almost 3 last night is because I have no self-control, and I'm such a night owl that it's often problematic. And most of winter is an uphill battle in making sure that I don't develop the circadian rhythm of a raccoon. But dryer balls, felting them. I've learned a lot in this process. So far, I think I consider these a success, but it's kind of, we're gonna have to see. So first things first, the more astute of you might have noticed that this is a different pair of tights than they were in last night. I'm so glad that I kept those 2 ratty old pairs of tights. I don't know what possessed me to, because I don't like clutter. I've only mentioned that 1,000 times. I'm so sorry. But they were in a pair of like beige pantyhose before that were good, but I never wear because they were way too obviously not my skin tone, and no one would notice unless I pointed it out, but I always felt it. And I also just kind of prefer a black tight anyway. They are now red. They're also now ruined. That's okay. It kind of gives me an excuse to throw these out finally. But because I was using this bright red sweater for it, it's so funny how these came out. But something that I wish I had maybe done a little bit more research in advance, but these took a few runs through the washer on high heat and high agitation to felt properly. Untying this knot when I just cut my nails is just, ugh. Okay, but that gives me an opportunity to talk about one thing I learned in this process. Absolutely do not skip the part where you tie the soon-to-be felted dryer balls in an old pair of tights or an old sock. You really want them in there and you want them secure. I think that was a problem with my first run, is that I gave them more slack as opposed to tying them very tightly like these 2. Also, if you're the kind of if you're working with a yarn that you're confident will not run, I think you can do this over time and just keep running them through the washer and dryer when you're washing things on hot and high heat, because it is good to have other things in the washer kind of bumping into these to help with that agitation that causes felting. So 3 washes later, here's what we have. You can see here, and there are these little bits where they don't seem completely bonded together. This was my main issue. I would see all of it had felted, but it had not felted super tightly together. And so if you're going to be doing, I'm so afraid of washing things on high heat. I'm so afraid of the washing machine and the dryer. Like, obviously I use them, but they eat clothing. So I always wash on cold and on gentle. But if you're someone who, if you have to sanitize stuff a lot, like any viewer with small kids, I think that you can do this over time and save energy that way. We just did a couple big washes of like kitchen towels and all the things that are kind of grimy and already red, because this very much did run. Maybe you'll remember that this was, okay, it's looking still beige on camera, but it's pink in person. So you can just do this as you're doing your regular loads of laundry. Don't be alarmed if it takes a few washes, and keep them in the hose and keep the hose nearby, because otherwise you're gonna kind of create it like a little exploded felty mess. I'm still nervous about this. Like, that looks like it's gonna come apart. And then if it's gonna come apart, then that's not a good gift. But I think things that would make this easier, if you want to learn from my experiences, I think pre-felting them a little bit would also make it easier. And I definitely think, again, really roughly, you don't have to be super neat or precise with it, but stitching, sewing them down a little bit, or using a crochet hook to really weave in the end of the ball makes a difference in how secure it felt. And I was a woman possessed last night. I was having so much fun with felt. I just kind of threw in the leftovers of the knit and crocheted fabric I was using in there too. And this one felted so wonderfully. Like, you guys remember how I said that the sleeve was way too long? Look at that now. That's so funny. It was as long as the sleeve before. And then now it's eensy weensy. This is hefty. This is thick. And it's like, can you give a sense of how thick and dense that is? It's honestly stunning. I'm quite impressed, and I'm anticipating future adventures with felting. Actually, as I was Googling all of these things and looking for tips and wondering if I had done stuff wrong last night, I found out that this is technically not felting. It's technically felling or boiling wool. But I think colloquially, we know this is felting, so I'm just going to keep calling them felted. But this, I'm going to cut out and make into coasters, and I think one of those pot holders that you put warm things out of the oven on. We have a couple cork ones. They're kind of gross. I think felt would be fun, and my roommates like it too, because I run everything about our household by them, because obviously I'm not going to make collective decisions just by myself. I'm thinking either circles or little squares, and then use the front and the back and the sleeves to make cute seasonal coasters and pot holders, because I saw a whole bunch at the mall when I went to pick up my stuff on Friday, and I thought that was quite inspirational. So I do think, here's my plan. Coasters and pot holders. And then all of those 7-foot tiny little amounts of this, I think I'm going to attempt to embroider some really basic flowers and snowflakes and little motifs onto this for those coasters and those pot holders. I've never done embroidery before unless you can't duplicate stitch. But I watched a lot of tutorials last night as my mind was going as to what to do with this. And I think that's something I'm going to try. It feels like a very low stakes project. I just want to do that sooner rather than later. So A, that we have those, and B, so that this and all those little squigglies of yarn do not just take the place of that sweater and this sweater in just taking up space in my room. But yeah, I'm overall quite pleased with these projects. And I would say I recommend them. I'm going to have to cut out like 12 minutes of footage of me just struggling to untie these knots. Listen, if these hold up, I think they're pretty and they would make a nice gift. I'm just concerned about the longevity if it's not 100% perfectly bonded together. You know, all these little gashes there. Is that going to be a problem? So I think before I feel confident saying, yes, these can be gifted, not in general. Dryer balls, 100% give those gifts. I would love to receive them. My mom loved receiving them. I think they're amazing. But giving these ones particularly, I'm going to have to use them a bunch first, I think. Or have like a test batch, like 3 that I use here, because I made them all the same. But there we go. And then finally, this is the front panel of that crochet piece where the wool from this came from. My roommate wants to maybe cut little hearts out of this and see if she can make a garland. She wants to punch needle the ends, the edges, to make them nice and clean. Apparently she's done this before. I trust her. These are going to her for her future crafty endeavors. I guess I never really explained why I'm doing all of these things now. Really, I mean, it's because I get stressed by having a long to-do list and having these things just be things that I have meant to do and not done. But I really feel like November, I'm feeling not the pressure for gift knits, but the momentum for them. And I'm at a point where I'm at an impasse with pretty much all of them. I don't want to spoil what's going to come up on the podcast soon, but there's a top for my mom that I've literally knit all of, but the whole body needs to be frogged, but I don't know how much yet. I can't move forward with that until I have her tried on and I can literally pinch the amount of excess fabric, remove that from the body stitch count and keep going. I have to frog a certain part of the socks for my brother. He also doesn't want a hat. There's just a whole bunch of things like that that are currently mean that I can't move forward with my projects until I do a significant amount of work or get input from somebody else. And one key example of this is I've been knitting this hat for one of my roommates for about a week. This yarn is so absolutely her. She's very into pink, lilac, and yellow. These are her colors. And so I cast on a Musselburgh hat, and I've been knitting this whenever I've had chill knitting time, like, you know, weekly meeting, on the bus, etc. for about a week, maybe a bit more because other things have been a priority. And then I was sitting knitting this on the couch while she was gone with our other roommate, and I said to Sarah, have you ever seen Sophie wear a hat even once? And she said, oh no, I have not. And we thought about it, and I looked around, and there's not a single hat of hers in our apartment. She doesn't wear hats. She doesn't wear ear warmers. Sarah said, you can still salvage it. Maybe just knit her one of those, ear warmers instead. And we had a bunch of errands to run today. That's why I haven't recorded until 5:20 p.m. is I was working on these things, but I got distracted with our roommate trip to the recycling depot, and then I was like, well, I'm wearing my pants. I might as well just go to the market. And then I thought, well, I'm in my coat, so I might as well just beat our dirty rug outside before we shampoo it, etc., etc. But as we were getting ready to go to the recycling place, we were bundling up because it's about 2 degrees, or it was about 2 degrees at that point. It was very windy. You need, hat wearing weather. And I said, oh, are you not going to wear a hat? And my roommate said, no, I'm not really a hat person. She goes, no, I just, they always kind of never stay on my head or I lose them. And I'm not so a big fan of those ear things. I guess I just always wrap myself in my scarf and wear a hood. And over her shoulder, Sarah, my other roommate, and I make eye contact, and I'm like, but I suspected this, which is why I haven't spent this weekend working on this in secret. As you can see, I just took it off the needles because if she's not going to wear it, this is, I want to make her something that she's going to actually like and get a lot of use out of, and she doesn't like hats. So the thing is she moved in May, and so I didn't know that. I just kind of assumed she liked hats because most people I know wear hats, but she doesn't. And it wasn't until cold weather season arrived that I realized I've never seen her wear a hat. So it's just been a bunch of situations like that with my gift knits. And so I was feeling pretty frustrated, and I wanted to kind of not feel in a rut with my crafting, especially my gift specific crafting. So I thought, dryer balls, some housekeeping where I put away the sweaters that have been bugging me and make them into felt, or unravel them into yarn, etc., etc. And I'm feeling much better as a result. So what we're gonna do now is I'm going to finish ripping this back, and then I'm gonna go downstairs and make myself some dinner. And then my goal is to, who's texting? Nathan. And my goal is to do one more column of rows of squares connected for our crochet blanket and tonight, and then watch some Dairy Girls and like knit something nice. Maybe I'll knit on that cardigan that I haven't shown you and you guys don't know exists because I haven't filmed a podcast in 5.5 weeks. Maybe I'll start some baby socks. Maybe I will cast on a pair of fingerless mitts for Sophie and hope she doesn't notice.
Hello everybody and welcome to Tuesday and my glamorous work from home knit fit. This is Zoom meeting on the top, comfy pants on the bottom, a fit I know we are all very familiar with. So I was sitting here on my lunch break thinking about how to most efficiently go about editing this vlog this evening so that I can upload it hopefully sometime this week for you guys. And it occurred to me that I don't think I actually filmed a proper outro. So here I am to sit down with you guys a couple of days later to do that. So I think, what did I get done that weekend, this past weekend? First and foremost, I had a lot of fun, which I think really was my point. I have been bordering on being stressed about my crafts recently, which is entirely my own fault. There have been some snafus with my gift knits, and I might have overcommitted just a little bit. We'll see. Maybe I'll get them all done in time. And I really wanted to do something that would kind of fulfill that creative outlet that I haven't gotten from filming a podcast in a little while, which I will do next week, I promise. And from having just too much cluttering my brain in terms of to-dos and wanting to stretch some new craft ideas and get some things off my plate. And I think I succeeded. I kind of fell back in love with some of my projects and I'm feeling just so much better about things now than I was going into this weekend. So I'm gonna do a little weekend in review. First, this never-ending whip. If you heard that thump, that is the sound of the felt sweater hitting the floor from my lap. This crochet granny square afghan that I have been working on since February of 2021. We now have 3 columns connected and all of the rows. I'm roughly doing one of these every night or every 2 nights, and I have 2 more to go, and then all I have to do is the border. I weighed the amount of yarn that I have left, and after doing 2 of these rows, I used 16 grams of yarn, which means about 8 grams of yarn per column. And so I'm looking at being able to very comfortably finish this crochet blanket. It's going to brighten up our living room, and it's going to make me really, really happy to have it done. I'm back to enjoying this project, even though I really do prefer knitting to crochet 90% of the time. Feeling good about it. It'll get done before 2023. Next, I started cutting out some Sunday evening. I guess the last crafty thing that I did as part of this vlog's timeline is I started cutting out some felt circles. I mean, roughly a circle. Something that I've always been bad at since being small is cutting things out in a circle, even when I trace. So these will be coasters, and I have prepared a couple of the teeny weeny little scrap balls of the yarn I'm unraveling from my dad's sweater to embroider. I've been watching a bunch of embroidery tutorials, excited to learn the basics of a new craft and have a very low stakes way to practice because I didn't have to buy anything new for it, and using up scraps. And I have quite a bit of this, definitely enough to make at least 6 or 7 coasters and 1 big, what are those called, pot holders? I traced one of them, confirmed with my roommates that we do want more and we want a size. That'll be this. You see another coaster to be prepared, a couple more coasters to be prepared, and I'm excited to work on these slowly whenever I want to break from knitting and crocheting. The one thing that has been slowing me down is this is a pain to cut through. It is thick, it is hefty. Are you seeing? You know, that's rather significant, which I think will be great for both coasters, those pot holder things, and in the future when I eventually felt myself some mittens. But I just got new kitchen scissors and I don't want to dull them cutting out felt coasters, so doing this slowly. I have still most of the front panels to unravel from that sweater, but I have cast on using the yarn and started that hat for my boyfriend because oh my goodness, looking in the black bag with the navy yarn, it's like looking into a black hole a little bit. Just the basics of the headstock pattern available on Ravelry for free because he asked for a ribbed hat. It's super scrunched on the needles, but I'm holding it double for a very thick and squishy hat. And I held it double because I thought it would maybe be a little bit too light for a fingering weight, and so this kind of feels like a sport or a light DK, and I think that'll make a really nice warm hat. Excited to work on this for a little bit whenever I have the daylight. And I have almost all of a mitten with the yarn that I frogged from my roommate's hat in order to make her a pair of fingerless mitts for her birthday. Frog also has his sweater, and I'm excited to take the felt dryer balls out for a spin when I wash some bedding tonight to see if they actually do hold up and if they will make a worthy gift. So overall, reflections, try new crafts if you want, especially when you're feeling a little bit burnt out or you're verging on burnout from your normal craft, your normal knitting, and have some fun, try new stuff, take some time to be bad at something for a little bit. It's good for the soul. So I don't really feel like you need to actually take away some type of major life lesson from this. I'm just excited and I'm happy that I did these things. I'm happy that I took the time to try some new stuff. And I definitely think I'm going to go back and try some more felting moving forward. Excited to learn a little bit of embroidery. Excited to finish this crochet project and take up a whole bunch more knitting ones. And I'm really happy that I vlogged and took you guys along with. So, thank you so much for being here. Hope you and your loved ones have a wonderful rest of the week. And I'll see you guys again soon for a real podcast episode. Ooh.